Okay, hi. Let's talk about Romeo and Juliet, Act 1. That's what you're supposed to read this week. Um, the opening, or prologue, is a little introduction, and a guy comes out, like the narrator guy comes out. He's called the chorus. The chorus comes out, and he says, there's two households, two families, and they're in Verona. That's the city where the story takes place. And they have children, these families, and they become star-crossed lovers who take their life. So it gives away everything in the first scene. He tells what's going to happen. And that's to quiet down the audience and get them to start paying attention. He says they're star-crossed lovers because it's like the universe is against them. They were never going to make it. But with their deaths, it kind of buries the fighting. Like after this, the two families don't fight anymore. So again, he tells us the whole ending, but now we have to see what happens. Okay, he says, yep, this is the 2 hours traffic of our stage. So we're going to start right now. So in Act 1, Scene 1, there's some servants from the Montague side and some servants from the Capulet side, and they see each other in the streets. And they start saying mean stuff to each other because they hate each other. And one side, they start biting their thumb. It's like really dirty. It's like flipping the middle finger. And the servants on the other side say, hey, did you bite your thumb? Did you bite your thumb at us? And the guy says, yeah, I bit my thumb. He's like, did you bite your thumb at us? And so this is how the fighting starts. They start arguing, and then they take out their swords. And they actually start sword fighting in the middle of the street. And then Romeo's friend, Benvolio, comes walking down the street, and he tries to stop it. He takes out his sword, and he's like, stop, stop, you fools, why are you fighting? But then Tybalt, who's Juliet's cousin, comes out. He sees Benvolio with a sword, and he figures Benvolio's fighting too. And he says, no, I'm really just trying to get him to stop. But Tybalt doesn't believe it. They really just all hate each other. Even though Benvolio's trying to be like a peacemaker, Tybalt doesn't believe it. Okay? So there's fighting. Finally, the dads come out. Lord Capulet and Lord Montague come out. Lord Capulet, Juliet's dad, calls for his sword. He's like, hey, my sword. And the mom says, a crutch. You're too old to be fighting. It's more appropriate if you have a crutch. It's kind of funny. But then the prince comes out, and he's furious that even though he gave an order to stop fighting, the two families are fighting again. He can't believe it. He says, this is it. I've had it. He says, the next time there is fighting, I'm giving the death penalty. No more fighting in Verona. Now, get out of here. Part. Everyone go home. And so they all start leaving. Okay. Lady Montague and Lord Montague, Romeo's parents, are concerned because he's not there. They're like, thank God Romeo wasn't here during this fighting. But they're wondering where he's been. So Benvolio says, well, I'll find him. I'll find out if there's a problem. So Benvolio sees Romeo coming, and he says, oh, there he is. I'll talk to him, don't worry. So he talks to Romeo, and he says, how's it going? And Romeo says, seriously, there was fighting here again? And Benvolio says, yeah, the prince was really mad. He says, why are you not around? Why are you in such a bad mood, Romeo? So Romeo says, I have this huge problem. I'm in love with this girl, Rosaline, and she's not interested. Rosaline, not interested. And so Romeo says, yeah, I don't know what to do. I feel bad. So Benvolio wants to help, but he doesn't know exactly what to do. Okay, in scene 2, a guy named Paris comes to Juliet's house. He's come to talk to her parents, to talk to the dad, about getting permission to marry her. The dad says, haha, you've got to be kidding. My daughter can't marry. She's too young. She's not even 14 yet. She's just about to turn 14. And Paris says, well, I'm interested. And back then, there wasn't really a lot of choices for a young woman. It was either get married or become a nun, like work for the church. So the parents promise to think about it, but they think she's too young. The next thing that happens is that he tells Paris, hey, we're having a ball, like a party tonight at our house. Why don't you come to that, and maybe you'll meet somebody that you're interested in. Like maybe you'll see somebody else. And Paris says, okay, I'll try. But really he's coming just to look at Juliet, probably. Okay. Lord Capulet, Juliet's dad, sends out a servant with a list of guests. Well, he's a servant, so he can't read. He sees Benvolio and Romeo and his buddies walking down the street, and he says, excuse me, can you read? Tell me what this says. Like, who should I invite? So Romeo and Benvolio and Mercutio, his friends, they find out about the party. Well, guess who's on the guest list? Rosaline. Romeo wants to go to the party because Rosaline's going to be there, the girl he loves. And his friends say, well, we could go, and then maybe you'll see someone else and forget about Rosaline. So they're backing him up. Even though they're not actually invited, they're going to crash the party at the Capulets, and maybe he'll find somebody else. Okay, fine. So, in scene 3, Lady Capulet, the mom, and the nurse, who's like Juliet's nanny, like her whole life, pretty much, call Juliet in, and they're like, hey, we have something to tell you. The great Paris is interested in you. He wants to marry you. And they're kind of excited. It's a good thing, because otherwise she'd have to go work for the church or something. But Juliet's like, nah, I'm not really interested. And the nurse thinks about it out loud. Yeah, she's not yet 14, it's true. Maybe it's a little bit early. But she doesn't get to decide because she's a servant. She's not the mom or dad. Well, they try to talk to her about marriage, and they're like, listen, come downstairs to the party tonight, and hopefully, you'll get to like Paris a little bit more. And Juliet says, fine. But she doesn't really have the choice, Okay. In scene 4, Romeo and his buddies are walking to the party. They have a torch because it's dark outside. And they're like, come on, Romeo, get in a better mood. It's going to be a good party. And he's like, I'm trying, but I have this burden of love. Okay. They decide they better wear like a mask or a visor to cover their faces, since they're not really supposed to be at the Capulet house, of course. When they get there, there's music and there's people dancing and eating and everything, and they cover their faces so that it's not super obvious that they're crashing the party. And the dad, Lord Capulet, he even sees them. He's like, hey, look at this, some people in masks, how funny. But Mercutio and Romeo and Benvolio, even though they're covered, they get recognized by Juliet's cousin, which is Tybalt. Okay, Tybalt, this is scene 5. Tybalt says, I think that's Romeo, that Montague. How dare he come to this party? I can't believe it. And he's really mad because, they're not supposed to come over. They're not invited. And the two families hate each other. Tybalt can't believe it. He's like offended that they would come to the party. And he already starts thinking about how angry he is and how he wants to get revenge on them. Well, the dad, Lord Capulet, calms him down. He says, listen, you are not going to ruin my party by having this huge fight, so just let it be. I heard he's actually not that bad a guy, this Romeo. And Tybalt has to suck it up because he's not the dad. He's just the cousin. Okay, well, at the party, Romeo and Juliet see each other. He's looking for Rosaline, of course. But they see each other, he and Juliet, and right away, bam, they both feel something. It's like instant love. And he talks to her. He puts his hand on her hand, and he says, oh, I hope my icky, rough man hand isn't hurting your beautiful girl hand. And she says, oh, no, not at all. Well, they kiss, and right away, they both feel it. It goes really well. But then, he has to go because the mom is coming. So he asks, oh, who's the mom? And they tell him, And he's like, oh no, she's a Capulet? And then she does the same thing. She asks around, hey, does anyone know who that young guy is? He's kind of cool. And they tell her, oh, that's a Montague, I think, from the other side. And they're both horrified. Oh no! Because they both liked each other and like instantly kissed and fell in love, but they're enemies. They're from the other side. And she says, this is terrible. And then the party's over and the strangers have to leave. And that's the end of Act 1.